Last week, we broke Hershey bars into different fractions. We broke our Hershey bars into halves, thirds, fourths, sixths, and twelfths. This week, we're going to be using those same Hershey bars to find equivalent fractions, that is, fractions that are the same amount. So get out your candy bars if you save them, or if you didn't, you can download the PDF of the paper chocolate bars and cut those apart into all of the different fractions. First, we're going to find which fractions are equivalent to 1/2. So take your 1/2 bar or your 1/2 paper representation and your thirds. And let's see if any of the thirds are the same as 1/2. So if I take my 1/3, I put it over here. It doesn't really look the same size, but looks can be deceiving. So let's count the number of rectangles, little rectangles, and see if they are the same. If they are, then these are equivalent fractions. In 1/2, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 1/3, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are not equivalent fractions. But what if we brought over another third? Then would we have equivalent fractions? Let's count it up. This is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we don't have equivalent fractions again. Now let's compare fourths and halves and see if we can find any equivalent fractions. Start by taking 1/4. We can see with our eyes that that's not the same amount, is it? But let's count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles in 1/2. 1, 2, 3 rectangles in 1/4. So let's try adding another fourth and see what happens. I think you can probably tell just by looking at it that they are equivalent or the same. But let's prove it by counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we would say that 1/2 equals 2/4, or 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. All right, now let's try to find an equivalent fraction using sixths. So take your sixth bars. Start by placing 1 under your 1/2. We can see very clearly that these are not equivalent. We have 6 here, we only have 2 here. So think about it for a minute and see if you can figure out how many sixths you need to move over to get an equivalent fraction. If you said 3/6, you're right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles in 1/2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles in 3/6. You can see them here, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6. 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6. 1/2 equals 3/6. Let's look at twelfths and see how many twelfths it takes to make an equivalent fraction to 1/2. Start by putting 1 of your twelfths underneath your 1/2. We can see that's not even close. So you're going to need to keep adding twelfths until you get up to an equivalent fraction. Go ahead and try that now. Okay, so we know that 1/2 has 6 of these little rectangles. So it takes 6 of these twelfths to make an equivalent fraction. 1/2 is equivalent to 6 twelfths. 1/2 equals 6 twelfths. Now let's work with our fourths. Find your fourths candy bar and take just 1/4. Once you have that set up, take your thirds. Bring over 1/3 and let's compare them. These are a little tough to compare because one is really long and the other isn't. So we have to go by rectangles. 1/4 has 1, 2, 3 rectangles, and 1/3 has 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are not equivalent. This is too big. Now let's compare 1/4 to sixths. So start by taking your sixths and putting 1/6 underneath your 1/4. And let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So this is not equivalent. But let's see if 2/6 is equivalent. Let's count it up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2/6 is too big, but 1/6 is too small. We can't make an equivalent fraction using sixths. Now let's see if we can use twelfths to find equivalent fractions. So take your twelfths, bring 1 over, put it underneath 1/4. Obviously it is not equivalent, it's too small. So bring over another 12th. Now we're getting closer, aren't we? 1, 2, 3, but only 1, 2 here. So let's bring over another one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 rectangles in 1/4, also 3 rectangles in 3/12. So 1/4 is equivalent to 3/12. 1/4 is equal to 3/12. So we found equivalent fractions for 1/4, but now let's see if we can find equivalent fractions for 3/4. So take your fourths candy bar and just take one of your fourths away. Now you have 3/4 left. Let's start by comparing 3/4 and 1/3. How many rectangles do we have in 3/4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And how many do we have in 1/3? 1, 2, 3, 4. Not enough. Bring over another third. So now you've got 2/3. 9 rectangles here. Let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 here, 8 here. That's not equivalent. Let's bring over our third. Now we've got 3/3 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now we have too many. So we can't use thirds to make an equivalent fraction to 3/4. Now let's see if we can make equivalent fractions with sixths. Start by bringing over 1/6. Now remember, we have 9 little rectangles here in 3/4. We're up to 2 rectangles, clearly not equivalent yet. Let's bring over another 1/6. So now we have 2/6. 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Still not up to what we need. So take another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Still not equivalent. How about 4/6? 9 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Almost, but not quite. So let's take another 6th. Now we have 5/6 here. 9 rectangles here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9 here, 10 here. We actually can't make equivalent fractions using sixths. Let's see if we can make equivalent fractions using twelfths. We still have our 3/4 here. Bring over your 12ths candy bar. And let's start lining them up. Now remember, we have 9 little rectangles here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When we bring over 1/12, we have 1 rectangle, so we have a ways to go. Okay, we finally have an equivalent fraction. 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. 3/4 equals 9/12. And we proved that by showing 3/4 has 9 little rectangles and 9/12 also has 9 little rectangles. Let's see if we can find equivalent fractions for thirds. We're going to work with 1/3. So take your thirds candy bar and you can just move 2 of them off of your sheet. And let's start with sixths. Find your sixth candy bar, bring it over, and let's start by comparing 1/3 and 1/6. We can see they're not equal. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles in 1/3 and only 1, 2 rectangles in 1/6. So go ahead and grab another sixth. Let's count them up. 4 rectangles in 1/3, also 4 rectangles in 2/6. So 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. 1/3 is equal to 2/6. Now let's try it with 12ths. We still have 1/3 here. Get your 12ths candy bar and start by bringing 1/12 over. Definitely not anywhere close to being equivalent. 1, 2, 3, 4 here, remember. Only 1 here. So keep bringing 12ths over until you reach the same number of rectangles. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles in 1/3. 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles in 4/12. 1/3 is equivalent to 4/12. 1/3 equals 4/12. Now let's work with 2/3. So go ahead and take 2 of your thirds and put them together. And then grab your sixths frame with your candy bar that's divided into sixths. And let's start comparing. Now in 1/3 there were 4 rectangles, but we've got 2/3 here. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 rectangles. So we're looking for 8 rectangles to make an equivalent fraction. Bring over 1/6. We can see that's not enough, but it's a start. Keep bringing over your sixths until you have an equivalent fraction. Okay, so remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 rectangles in 2/3. Now let's take a look at our sixths. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sixths here. Let's count how many rectangles that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've done it. We've made an equivalent fraction, and if you put them together, it's really easy to see too that they are equivalent. 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. 2/3 equals 4/6. Now let's try that with 12ths. We still have our 2/3 here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rectangles. Take your 12ths, start moving them over. Keep going till you find an equivalent fraction. Okay, so here's 2/3. We know that's 8 rectangles. And here's 8/12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we can see that that's the same amount. So 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. 2/3 equals 8/12. Let's do one more. Let's work with sixths. Find your sixths candy bar. And we're only going to need one of our sixths. So go ahead and take off 5 and leave yourself just 1. Okay. Now let's find out how many 12ths it takes to make an equivalent fraction to 1/6. 1/6 has 1, 2 rectangles. So go ahead and bring over your 12ths until you have an equivalent fraction. There we have it. That was pretty easy. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1/6 is equivalent to 2/12. 1/6 equals 2/12. And that's equivalent fractions. Now comes the best part. You can eat your work.